My name is Scott Challoner, and you are listening to the Leaders Council podcast for the people who run the country and the people who keep the country running. As regular listeners of our show will know very well, part of our mission here at the Leaders Council is to bring you a variety of distinct perspectives on leadership, which come from those real and authentic leaders that go out there every morning and make this country work. And I'm delighted to welcome one of our very own Leaders Council members onto the show today in the form of Adwoa Owusu-Banahene, Director of TOBS Consultancy Limited. Adwoa is a specialist in public sector construction procurement and contracts, and we'll be talking all about that and skills on today's episode. Adwoa, very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us on the show. It's a real pleasure having you.
Oh, thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be on the show and look forward to the discussion today.
Yes, looking forward to it myself as well. And I'm just going to sort of cast minds back to the Leaders Council's recent special report, which was an investigative piece into the Government's Skills and Post-16 Education Act. And of course, you contributed to that yourself, Adwoa. And you wrote in that report that effective collaboration and cohesive coordination is going to be required between government, employers, further education, stakeholder groups, to be able to guarantee the integrated approach that ministers were looking for to efficiently deliver something called local skills improvement plans. And those plans are what the government intends to sort of put industry back at the heart of skills provision, make sure that, that further education is delivering the skills that industry needs. So when we talk about that cohesive approach that's needed between everybody, what ought that approach to consist of in your view, Adwoa?
Well, the points are made in the report with regards to that cohesive and collaborative approach is based on years of experience and learning within the contracts and procurement space. And as a contract and procurement specialist within the construction industry, I know very well the importance of transitioning from procurement execution to contract delivery. And many times, the realization of benefits and outcomes and output from procurement to contract delivery is lost, and many issues with delivery and risk to delivery and relationships are born out of the lack of understanding and lack of clarity of scope, key deliverables, and important clauses that are within contracts. And this is usually based on due to the fact that contracts are executed and often what we use the term thrown over the fence from procurement to contract delivery without the integration, without the collaboration, without the coordination between procurement teams and contract delivery teams. And this causes issues. And when delivery teams do not understand the basis for the contract and the intended benefits of the procurement, that is lost during the delivery process. So this is the basis for the point that I made about cohesion and collaboration between parties. So we're talking about the skills, the local skills and improvement plan. And this is going to be delivered. Well, firstly, let's talk about the development. So the development is going to be headed by the employers' representative bodies that are nominated by the department or the Secretary of State. They will have to work with employers, with providers, with stakeholder groups, for example, local authorities, the mayoral authorities, and local enterprise partners. These are all different organizations with different competing priorities coming together to ensure the development of the local skills. So that's a lot of priorities, a lot of directions, a lot of approaches that are all coming together to ensure that this plan works and it delivers what the government is intending to do. So you will need engagement from all these parties. You will need engagement and collaboration from all these parties to ensure that the intended benefits are delivered from the skills plan. So as a body, the employer representatives that are nominated need the buy-in of employers. They need the buy-in of providers like the further education colleges, sixth form colleges, and institutions that provide further education. They will need the buy-in of them. They will need them to understand the importance of what is being they're being tasked with, or what they have a duty to do. And in doing that, they will be able to then ensure that from the local skills and improvement plan is leveling up opportunities. So it's putting employers at the heart of it. But at the same time, you need to ensure that the skills that are being drawn up as priorities, or the areas that are being identified as gaps, that providers have the knowledge, have the capacity, have the funding to be able to provide. So at the end of the development phase, there will be a report. So in line with the government guidance on the local skills and improvement plan, there is a duty for the employers' representative bodies to draft a report at the end of the development phase. And that report will highlight key actionable priorities that providers need to deliver. For providers to deliver that, they will need to understand what that entails, and they will need to in turn plan for their resources and ensure that their teams are equally developed and ready to take on board the actionable priorities that they need to deliver in order to meet the priorities within the local employment plan. So as you can see, it's a grand task. It's no mean feat, and all areas, all elements, all organizations need to be joined up in order to ensure that the issues, the needs, and the approach is understood, and in order to be able to deliver it. So this is why I say that an integrated approach is needed. And from my view and my thinking, all areas will need to understand their roles and responsibilities. So the government guidance on the local skills plan development and delivery, and also accountability, is quite comprehensive, but it will be on each body, each employer, each provider that takes part in the development process to upskill their team in understanding the provisions in there, and in order to be able to deliver that. And then also there are key roles and responsibilities that are identified within the guidance. And again, the onus is on each member of this group that will come together to develop the plan, to understand their role and how they're contributing to the plan, and how they will deliver the plan to ensure that it's effective and it meets and achieves the intended benefits of the legislation.
Exactly right. And I suppose the challenge, as you say, the fact that it is no mean feat, is the fact that this is a group of organisations that have been off doing their own thing, working in silos for, decades now. And now they're expected to obviously come together and collaborate. And it's just trying to, deliver that with a cohesive strategy that's going to be the big challenge there, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's a big challenge, right? Because you've got, as I touched on already, there are competing priorities, and also there are tensions between what is deliverable and what is feasible or what is viable, right? So funding is going to be a key issue here, and providers will need to ensure that there is a right balance between delivering the priorities and also the viability and the feasibility of the priorities that are identified. So during the development and an engagement phase, this is where the employers' representative bodies that are leading the development of the plan needs to ensure that the strategy and the approach picks out these key issues, and they are addressed properly before the plans are put together and the priorities are identified. All challenges and all issues need to be highlighted so that they are addressed and dealt with, so to ensure that when we get to the delivery phase, there is a smooth sailing, and any issues that come out can be addressed accordingly.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly needs an approach of that ilk, doesn't it? And I just want to point out something else that you kind of rightfully identified as another failing in sort of helping the skills gap be exacerbated, become worse than it is. And that failing that you pointed out was the lack of career mentorship for young people at particular ages, certainly early on in their formative years while they're in school. And you mentioned that people from disadvantaged backgrounds, including those from ethnic minorities, are particularly left worse off by that as well. How do we kind of remedy that situation? How do we kind of get these careers advisors who are going to be sort of directing young people towards technical qualifications into schools? Because quite often there's a lack of engagement there, and what we're missing out on is actually, bringing people up, obviously the social mobility side, but we're also missing out on an opportunity to address the labour shortage as a whole, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you rightly said, it's getting career advisors into the schools. But what I believe, and this is where again integration and cohesion and collaboration is paramount. So besides duty, organizations deliver in accordance with what the pertaining issues are and the pertaining priorities are, and where the biggest issues are. They would channel energies and resources that way. And so where you have underrepresented groups or people that comes from low socioeconomic background, where the support and the assistance is lacking, organizations tend to not focus on that area, and sometimes it's because it's difficult. It's not well understood, the challenges that these groups face. It's not well understood by organizations, by institutions, and therefore sometimes it's easier to not delve too deep into it and to put a common approach. But my view is that we need a tailor-made solution, because the intersectionality of race, socio-economic background, ethnic background, and all the other protected characteristics presents unique challenges for individuals in terms of their educational attainment, in terms of their life outcomes and their life progressions. There are unique challenges and barriers that presents. And in order for organizations to really get into understanding these challenges and breaking down barriers, there needs to be a tailor-made solution. So there needs to be a needs-based analysis. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So we can take career advisors into the school, and they can do a presentation and advise pupils of what is available. But sometimes the young people from ethnic minority backgrounds or disadvantaged backgrounds, they don't understand some of the information, some of the terminology, some of the approaches that are being presented. And it's only, or even if they understand, they for themselves don't believe that that's for them. Or even going as far back as maybe their homes, their parents do not believe that that's a pathway for them. So it goes even beyond just going to the schools and making a presentation and providing awareness of increasing awareness of pathways. There needs to be a design of a needs-based assessment with these identified groups to really understand their needs and to tailor any provisions to their needs. And this, I believe, will go far into bridging that labour gap. Because yes, it's great that you're improving employment opportunities, and you're improving opportunities with employers being at the center of the skills plan. But what about the supply side? Are young people desiring the employment opportunities that are being generated? So it's a balance between ensuring that the supply side is going to meet the demand side, and young people are going to see the employment opportunities that are being created as for them. They're going to perceive, because perception is a very important thing. Mm-hmm. And if I don't perceive that that's for me, I'm not going to approach it. I'm not going to engage in it. And all the efforts to increase accessibility and widen participation is not going to prove fruitful and beneficial if a young person from a low socioeconomic background don't see those opportunities as for them. And this is where, again, representation is so important. So the careers people that are going to the schools, are they representative? When we go into employment organizations and that environment, can they see people that look like them in that environment? And therefore make them aspire to come into that environment. So these are all very important issues that needs to be addressed in order to ensure that the supply side is able to meet the demand side.
Yeah, so we talk a lot, don't we, about the perceptions of certain areas of industry and why people don't want to go and do certain jobs, like in construction, like in engineering. And what you said there is that the key actually is, how are you pitching these industries to young people? Are they actually understand what you're saying to them? And can they relate to it? Can they see people like themselves, people they identify with in that role, and therefore think, maybe this is for me? And that's the key really to sort of starting to really change minds, isn't it? It's not just all about just going there and saying, oh, wow, look how much money you can actually earn being a builder or being an engineer. It goes far deeper than that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And most of the young people that we're looking at now, or we're targeting into, that we need to target into the industries. For example, let's talk about construction, which is facing unprecedented labour shortages. Young people that we're looking at, we should be looking at what we call the Gen Zs, they will call themselves, the Generation Z. And they are more than just how much salary that they can gain. They're more about, ethical issues. They're more about work-life balance, flexibility, health and safety. We're talking about the green economy, the environmental issues. So the industry needs to be able to change the brand and the image of itself. And I know traditionally construction has been seen as a man's world, and it's all about the labor-intensive work. But it has evolved. Technology has enabled it, and there's so many different roles within construction. But all young people see is hard hats and men. And if that's the message and the imagery that is there, then it prevents young people, especially young girls, from wanting to get into that industry. And even guys, we can't discriminate. People want to do jobs where they will find fulfillment and satisfaction. And if they don't see that path is for them, they can't see the different roles, the varying roles within that industry and the possibilities that it can generate for them, then it doesn't appeal to them. So the industry really needs to come together, and there needs to be a campaign to change that image and the perception of the industry, and to send that message out to young people. There's so many more jobs, more roles to construction than the hard hat and working on site.
Exactly right. And you mentioned a key thing as well there about sort of the Generation Z priority, or Generation Z, however we want to call it. And they they're very, they're very conscious about sustainability. They're very conscious about the environment. They're very conscious about their impact on the planet. We obviously have the net zero agenda in the UK, net zero carbon emissions by 2050, and the construction sector is one of those that is having to modernise and make sure that it refines its processes to cut down on its carbon footprint. The industry clearly needs to do a lot to become greener, but procurement can play a role in helping it do that, can't it? And I think that's something that we should also talk about.
Absolutely. Procurement is at the centre, and if you look at the UK economy, you look at the government spend of over a third, and 300 billion of spend goes on to public sector procurement, and so procurement has a key role to play in the green agenda and the net zero carbon agenda. And when services are being tendered, when goods are being tendered, when public spend is being directed out. The key for procurement is to ensure that an end-to-end strategy is developed, and the usually procurement is concerned with cost, and when it comes to construction and net zero, it's about capital costs. And we need to move away from capital cost and the initial delivery cost. We need to take a total and life cycle costing approach. So we need to look at the life cycle cost and the end-to-end costing. So only looking at the capital cost is not good enough. If within the operation, the energy and technology and material that has been used it's resulting on high level of operational costs, energy bills are going up, then that is not really a benefit, because the savings that have been generated through the capital and infrastructure savings is going to be easily and quickly eroded by the operational cost. So we have to offset operational costs with capital costs to ensure that the savings are real savings, and they're not going to be eaten up when it gets to the operational stage with the cost of operation and energy bills. And we also have to think about the user stage, where in this current climate, energy poverty is a real thing, and we want to ensure that when construction, when buildings go into the occupation phase, that we're ensuring that people are not having to pay at odds because of decisions we made upfront in the process. So it's really important that procurement puts this at the heart of it. And this is where we go into, when we are designing procurement, we need to ensure that at the moment we include net zero criteria as part of the award, and that the selection process has sustainability at the heart of it. But I believe that we don't go far enough. Some of the percentages, what we call, when we are doing public procurement, we will apportion what we call weighting to criteria or priority areas. So, for example, sustainability. Currently, and most often, you don't see no more than out of 100, maybe 5% is awarded to sustainability. So it means sustainability and net zero only has the influence in the outcome of 5%. And other areas, such as the construction, the design, has much, much more of an impact. And then we wonder why it's not really being delivered, because it didn't have much of an influence in the initial process, in the award of the selected party. So they didn't have to think very difficult and hard about how they were going to approach the net zero, because when they look at the message we sent out with our weightings on the procurement, they can tell that although it's important, it's not that important as compared to the approach to the delivery, or compared to risk management. Because risk management, for example, maybe we're apportioning 20%. So clearly, when we're working with experienced contractors, developers, and bidders of public sector procurement, they are able to read into the design of evaluation systems to understand the level of importance we've placed on criteria. And so procurement needs to be able to push sustainability higher up at the agenda, to work with the businesses to ensure that they understand the importance that sustainability is going to have on the outcome when it comes to the weightings, so that the right weightings are given to sustainability in the design of the procurement and the evaluation systems. Moving it from the design of procurement and the evaluation system, I spoke already about contract management and contract delivery. And what happens, as I said, usually when you don't have a joined up approach between procurement and contract delivery, and where you have procurement teams working in silos, executing contracts and then throwing it over the fence to contract delivery teams, you end up with contract delivery teams not really understanding the promises that contractors or bidders or developers have made in the process, and which are all in the contract. But often contracts are not read, they're not understood, and the deliverables and the priorities are not understood. And therefore, contract deliverers and contract managers are not really getting the benefits that have been negotiated, that have been agreed and are party to the contract. They're not getting the benefits. They're not following up. They're not monitoring to ensure that you said you would do X, Y, and Z, and therefore you're doing it, and we're monitoring and we're ensuring that it's having the right outcome. So again, it all goes down to ensuring a joined up approach from procurement and into contract management. An organization needs to start looking at these two areas as one and not two, because procurement cannot be a standalone, and contract management and delivery cannot be a standalone if we want to ensure that we deliver the net zero agenda well.
Exactly right. And the government, I suppose, has looked at procurement somewhat with its sort of new procurement bill that is out there. But does that sort of legislation kind of go far enough in addressing some of the key issues? And are there any sort of real benefits within the legislation that you feel are going to actually make a difference?
So on the initial green paper, it sounds positive and promising. But again, it comes back to the conversation we're having right now. It's in the implementation that we will know how far reaching it will go, and also any further guidances that come out. So there are aspirations in there to ensure that the social value is at the heart of the new procurement agenda. Value for money is at the heart of the new procurement agenda, and also an innovation through SMEs is there. And I believe that is the means to get the sustainable agenda. SMEs and innovation through technology is going to play a huge role. And the new procurement bill that is going through the motions at the moment allows for more flexibility and it allows for more innovation. But how it will be implemented is where we would seek, we will understand more how effective it will be. Being able to bring in innovative technologies, innovative construction methodologies like modular construction, which is going to be very beneficial, and also materials that will enable organizations to reduce costs and also ensure that the sustainability priorities are adhered to, is going to be an interesting challenge. And this again will go back into how flexible the flexible competitive procedure is in enabling or contracting authorities to design a procurement that really suits the net zero carbon agenda and allows for procurement organizations to dialogue, to negotiate, to discuss real innovative solutions with contracting authorities and also with the SMEs and the innovative industry, because we believe that local organizations, small and medium enterprise organizations, are able and flexible enough to provide the technologies that are needed to ensure the sustainability agenda. But it's how far the procedures that are being introduced will enable procurement organizations to be able to bring that in. But we are excited, and we believe that the aspirations are well intended.
Yeah, there are some promising things in there, and I suppose one of the other positives is the fact that, as well as focusing on the net zero agenda, the bill is seeking to sort of hasten that procurement process, isn't it? So developers and contractors can actually deliver homes at a quicker rate that are environmentally friendly and are going to sort of help solve the housing crisis that we're currently in.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the main benefits of the bill is that speed and simplicity of the procedures. Again, we do not know what the guidances are, what the procedure will be, and so we are in anticipation of that. But currently, under the public contracts regulations that we use, which are imposed from the EU directives, there are strict rules, strict timescales that have to be adhered, and usually these are protracted, and it results in very lengthy procurement, very costly procurement, which prevents small and medium enterprise organizations to really engage with government organizations. So this is where the proposed procedures and frameworks will be welcomed in terms of really shortening timelines to engage with the market and to get a solution. Because if the procurement process can really be shortened, now the average timescale from engaging the market to having a contract in place can be, depending on how complex the procurement is and the solution required can be anywhere between a year to 3 years. And that within that timescale, things change. Cost of inflation, suppliers go out of business, we lose the labor, we lose the capacity, we lose capability. So many things change within that process. So it's important that we shorten the timescale, and I think that's one of the key benefits of the new process.
Absolutely, and let's hope that it really takes hold.
Sorry, let me take a sip of water. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, of course, and we've got to hope, haven't we, that it really sort of takes hold, don't we, to make sure that, obviously, we really see the changes that the bill intends to make. The aspiration is there, as you say, but it's in the implementation that's going to be the key there. We are just about out of time on the podcast today, Adwoa, unfortunately, but I have to say it's been a fantastic and really insightful discussion welcoming you on to talk about all of these issues around skills and around procurement. And, I would actually really enjoy the opportunity to welcome you back onto the show in future when, the bill is a little bit further down the line, and once we know more about what that's going to look like, just to, reassess the situation and see where we're at that point in time.
That would be absolutely awesome. Yes, we're looking forward to as I was saying, the bill and more guidance on the implementation. And I think a conversation on the implementation and the guidance will be excellent in terms of ensuring that it will generate the intended benefits of the aspirations.
Yeah, and we anticipate that eagerly, and we wait for the details to be forthcoming from government, as we always do. For now, Adwoa, thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us on the programme. It's been an incredible pleasure having you, and by all means, do take care and do stay safe with all still going on as well.
Well, thank you very much, Scott, for the invite, and it has been a pleasure.
It certainly was a pleasure welcoming Adwoa Owusu-Banahene from TOBS Consultancy onto today's programme, and I do hope that everybody tuning in thoroughly enjoyed the interview today. If you do have your own comment to make on the issues that we've discussed on today's programme, then you can write into leaderscouncil.co.uk/contact-us to leave that view with us, or you can even apply to be on the programme yourself to share your view or the story of your own business if you had an organisation or a company of your own, and that would be via leaderscouncil.co.uk/apply, where you could be the next person to appear on our programme, talking through issues like we've discussed with Adwoa today. Until next time, you have been tuning in to the Leaders Council podcast, and I have been your host, Scott Challoner. Please take care, everyone, and goodbye.